I want to ask you something before we even start today. How many of you are fully booked right now or close to it and still feel like something isn't working? How many of you have a team, people you've invested in, trained, believed in, and you're still the one who cannot take a full day off without everything feeling like it's going to fall apart? Or how many of you have had a month recently that looked great on paper and you still looked at your bank account and thought, where did it go?
Yes. If any of that landed, stay with us today because what we're about to talk about is the reason why. And more importantly, it's the way out. Today we're doing something we've never done on this show before. We're talking about a book that we wrote. And you can grab it today, right now, while this episode is playing. The link is in the show notes, and it's the first thing that you'll see. But we'll tell you all about that at the end. But I want you to know it's there because by the time this episode is over, you're going to want it.
That's right. This book is called Thinking Get Rich as a Salon Owner. It's available for pre-sale right now. Link in the show notes, like Lindsay said, the first link that you'll see. And we'll come back to that at the end. But I need you to hear me first. This is not a book about pricing strategies or retail scripts, or how to set up your booking software. This is a book about why those things are not working and what has to happen first before any of them actually will.
Yeah, we're talking about identity. We're talking about the shift that nobody in this industry has ever named out loud. And by the time we're done today, I think you're going to hear yourself in a way that you never have before. So I want to start with a story, not a concept, not a framework, a story, because I think the best way to understand, why we had to write this book is to go back to a version of each of us that we're now very honest about. I'm going to go first, and then Jen is going to tell you something that I think is going to stop you cold. I was only a few weeks into owning my salon, like weeks, and I needed to make a supply run. So I borrowed one of my team members' cars. We got in, or I got in. When I got in, I found business cards, like stacks of them. Her name was on the front, and another salon name was on the back. So I drove to the supply store, I drove back, and the whole drive, I just kept thinking, she's leaving, and she's probably not the only one. I let her go that afternoon, and then her friends walked out too. Then her parents came through the door, and another one's boyfriend came in and threatened my life. And I'm not exaggerating. He came in, demanded a paycheck that wasn't ready yet, and threatened my life. I was the youngest person on the team. I was standing there alone, and I held the line.
Lindsay, I didn't even know that part of your story until we were actually writing this book. And every time I hear it, it's like, man, I think about that's who we're talking to, the
Mhm.
person who held the line alone.
Yeah, and honestly, not long after that, I found out that I was going to be a mom. I was unmarried, three people down. My business was barely standing, and I spent years after that afraid to really invest in anyone again. I stayed small, I stayed guarded. I took every other paycheck when I was lucky and told myself that's just how this industry worked. It wasn't. I just didn't have the systems yet. And I didn't even know what was missing, really.
So good. So, okay. So I really need you to hear this one and tell you the story. I'd given everything to my team, years of my time, my trust, my belief in them. I grinded for that salon, 60 plus hours a week, if you can relate to that. On my day off, I still got to come in and clean because at the time I couldn't afford anyone to come in and clean, and I love what I was building. I believed in the people that I was building it with. And then a couple years ago, within 4 months, we had 8 service providers that walked out the door. 4 months, 8 service providers. And together, when we did the math, they represented nearly $800,000 in annual services. So let me say that again so you can hear it, because some salons that might would even wipe them out. $800,000 in services.
Yeah, most salons don't survive that, Jen. That's incredible.
You're right, most salons don't, and I don't wanna pretend it didn't hurt, like, I had given those people, those teammates everything. I felt like I'd given them everything, and,
Mhm.
standing in that salon, watching it unravel felt like a betrayal I hadn't seen coming, and but somewhere, underneath the hurt, something else started to form. There became clarity, because when I got quiet enough to really look at what else had happened, really look, I realized something that changed everything for me. And that was when I realized that I truly didn't have a people problem. I had a systems problem. And the moment that I saw that, I truly couldn't unsee it. And so I put the right systems in place, simple, clear, consistent, and the guests stayed because they didn't belong to those service providers or those stylists. They belonged to the experience that I had built, and the experience didn't walk out the door. And one thing, Lindsay, I remember too is I think I shared with you, we kept like 82%, not kept, we did. We kept
Mhm.
82% of the revenue that those service providers represented.
82%, Jen, that is truly incredible. It really is.
Yeah. And then I remember, not to brag, but it was like 4 months later, I think we had our best, I think it was 4 or 5 months later, we had our best month ever.
Yeah, Jen, that right there, that's the entire premise of this book. Not just the comeback, but the whole reason the comeback was even possible.
Yeah, because truly, if you think about it, it was never about the people, it was always about the systems. And the systems come from identity. And, truly, that's what we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and name the thing. Let's actually name it because I think there are salon owners listening right now who have been feeling this for years and have never had words for it. When I opened my salon, everybody said I was going to crush it. I was talented, connected, and they were right. I was busy and I was exhausted and I was underpaid and I was probably resentful. And I couldn't figure out why because everything looked like it was working.
Yeah, Lindsay, that's truly the part that kind of breaks my heart. Like when I hear this from salon owners, the outside looks great, the Instagram looks
Mhm.
great, the chair is full, and inside they're still drowning.
You're drowning because here's what's actually happening, and this is the core of what we unpack in this book. And I had never made the shift. I was still operating as a service provider who happened to own a business. I was not operating as a salon business owner, and those two things are not the same identity.
And you said I was still operating as a service provider who happened to own a business, not
Mhm.
as a salon business owner. Man, those are such fundamentally different identities. Like, and the difference isn't about how good you are at your craft, it's about what you believe your role is.
Right, and we're not just saying work on your business, not in it, which is great. Thank you, Michael Gerber. We love you. We're saying something different. We're saying the reason you can't step back, the reason you can't hold your team accountable, the reason, the business can't survive without you in it is not because you don't know the strategy. It's because your identity hasn't caught up yet.
Here's what I know is true, Lindsay. I know you can relate to this. Like, I kept hiring coaches,
Mhm.
taking courses, every course available. Yep, signed up. Implementing systems, and they worked for a minute, but then I'd slide right back to the same patterns and problems. Like, and what I didn't understand was that I was trying to install new behaviors on top of an old identity. And that old identity always wins. Until you change who you believe you are, the strategies are just band-aids.
Can we say that again? Because we need people to really hear it. The old identity always wins. Until you change who you believe you are, the strategies are just band aids, like you said, Jen. So here's what's actually happening in the brain of a service provider who cannot make the leap. As a service provider, your value is tied into your hands, your presence, to you physically doing the thing. And when you make that the core of your identity, your brain starts doing something really sneaky. It starts equating your worth with your productivity, with how many clients you see or guests you see, or with how busy you are.
Yeah, that one hits, Lindsay, because like
Mm.
truly, like I've been here before. Like that busyness becomes a badge of honor. Like, look at me, busy. It's written on my shirt, right? We wear it, we post about it. We're fully booked for 3 months plus. And
Mhm.
again, that's great. But if you're fully booked and you cannot take a day off without the revenue disappearing, you do not, let me repeat that, you do not own a business, you own a job.
And that's a hard thing to hear, but it's really a necessary thing because until you see it, you can't change it.
Yeah. And let me get personal here for a second. There was a season in my business where I was making what looked like good money on paper, taking home almost nothing, full team, managing every schedule, doing my own guest, handling every complaint. And, someone said to me, Jen, are you running a salon or are you running from yourself?
Wow.
Yeah, because like the constant motion, the busyness, it wasn't just about the business. It was about the fact that if I stopped moving, I'd have to sit with the question of whether I was actually cut out for this. And that question, like, it truly terrified me.
Yeah, I understand because behind the chair, you're good.
Mhm.
You have evidence, years of evidence. But being in the owner's seat, you don't have that evidence yet. And your brain is terrified of failure. So it keeps pulling you back into what feels safe. And nobody told you this was happening. Nobody named it or naming it. That's literally what this book does. It names it, normalizes it, and gives you a way out.
Mm. Okay, so let's talk practically. Someone listening is going, I get it. I have an identity problem. Now, what do I do? What does the book actually give me?
Great. So, one of the core frameworks in the book is what we call be, do, have. And the reason it works is because it completely inverts the way most salon owners are thinking. Most people think if I could just have more clients, more revenue, a better team, whatever that is, then I could do the things a real owner does. And then I'd finally be the confident salon owner that I want to be.
Lindsay, I think that's how almost everyone runs. It's like have, do, be, and it never works because the have never comes when you're waiting for it to tell you who you are.
Yeah, because what actually works is inverting it. When you be first, you decide who you are, you step into the identity of the salon business owner before you have all of the proof, before the revenue justifies it, before the team is perfect, before everything is in place. This is Napoleon Hill's whole premise. And obviously, we titled the book as a nod to Think and Grow Rich because Hill's point is that your thoughts and beliefs precede your results. The mental game is actually what comes first.
When you think about it, when what we did is take that fundamental or that foundational truth and
Mhm.
apply it specifically to this industry, because salon owners have a very specific set of conditioning that is unique to us. That I'm not a business person or numbers person. I'm an artist belief, right? The I feel guilty charging more belief. Anybody can relate to that? Or the I can't ask my team to do things I wouldn't do myself belief. So you just do it all yourself.
All of it, And the book doesn't shame any of it. It just shines a light on it and says, this is what's running you. And here's how to upgrade it. We also walk through what we call the salon owner compass. It's a framework for understanding the four roles every successful salon owner has to be able to play. And most owners are only ever living inside of one of them.
Yeah, and the compass doesn't say you have to be equally strong in all four
Mhm.
forever. It says that you need to know where you are at any given time and build capacity in the areas where you are most exposed.
Yeah, it's like self-awareness as a business strategy. And the clarity it creates in your hiring, your team conversations, and truly how you spend your time, it changes everything. And I want to stop for just a second and actually paint a picture because I think we spend so much time talking about what's hard that sometimes we forget to talk about what's possible. I want you to picture a Tuesday, not a special Tuesday, just a regular Tuesday at your salon. And on this Tuesday, you're not behind the chair or table if you don't want to be. Your team is running everything on the salon floor. Your systems are doing what systems are supposed to do. They're working without you. You look at your numbers and you understand them, you know, not just the big number at the top, all of it, and it doesn't make your stomach drop. It gives you information. It tells you what to do next. Your team members aren't quietly applying at the booth rental down the street because they don't need to, because the opportunity that you've built inside of your salon is better than anything outside of it. And if someone does leave someday, you don't even panic because you've built something that doesn't depend on any one person, not even you.
Oh, good news. I love what you said, Lindsay, because that Tuesday that Tuesday exists, you know?
Mhm.
I'm living it, you living it, and I would tell you that the path from where you are right now to that Tuesday is not as long as you think it is, right? Because it starts with one thing. It starts with that identity shift, and everything else is just execution. And execution is actually the easy part. And can I say one more thing here too? Is because I
Mhm.
think about the version of me that was standing in the salon after a walkout, 8 people gone, $800,000 walking out the
Mhm.
door. That version of me would not have believed that this Tuesday was possible. She would have thought, this is just what the industry is. It's just the salon industry. Like, this is just how it goes. But that Tuesday is that Tuesday actually is when we had what we had inside of a year. And the only thing that changed was the way I saw the problem and the way I saw myself.
Yeah. And, that's the book. That's all of it right there. And there's one more piece of the book I want to talk about before we go into how you can grab it. And it's the section that honestly gets me the most emotional when I read it back, and it's what we call the Beauty Pro Manifesto.
This one, that's my favorite too. This one, yeah, I can feel it actually when Lindsay was just saying, I feel it in my chest because one of the most, the greatest things in the industry is the self deprecating culture that we've built. Oh, I'm just a hairdresser. I didn't go to college. I went to beauty school. And so many of us carry that. We came in the industry already feeling like we chose something less than, and it shows up everywhere, in how we price and how we hold space in a conversation and how we lead our teams.
Yeah, and the manifesto is about drawing a line and saying, I know what I bring. I know the value I create. I know what this profession means to the people I have the opportunity to serve. And I'm done apologizing for it.
Yeah. And you're not just a hairdresser. You're not just a nail tech. Like, you're not just an esthetician. Like, you run a business that creates real transformation for real people. Like, you are a leader. Like, you are an entrepreneur, and you deserve to see yourself that way.
Yeah. And, here's why I'm telling you this right now. We're telling you this right now. Because when you grab the book during the pre-sale, just short little window, you also get a Beauty Pro t-shirt, a real physical shirt. You don't even have to run a 5K to get it. And it's not just a bonus, it's a declaration. It's you saying out loud to yourself, to your team, to anyone who sees you in it, I know who I am. I know what I'm building, and I'm done shrinking.
Funny enough, Lindsay, someone is going to see you in that shirt and ask about it.
Mhm.
I wore a shirt to a career fair, and everybody's like, "Where did you
Mhm.
get that shirt? I want one."
Yeah.
And you're going to say what I said to them was like, "I'm a beauty professional. Like, I'm building something that matters. I own a salon. And that
Mhm.
moment, that's the manifesto in action because before you've even truly finished the book.
Yeah, and here's what we want you to do right now before the episode finishes playing. Think and Get Rich as a Salon Owner is available for pre-sale right now today. The link is in the show notes and it's the first thing you'll see. The book ships in a few weeks, which means when you order today, you are locking in your copy and your founding price before the general public even knows this exists. And you have two options. You have a physical copy, aka the real book that will be in your hands in May, or a digital copy. And yes, you get that the moment it's released too. Either way, you are getting it at the founding price before the full launch, before the price goes up. This is our way of saying thank you to the people who show up here every week. You get first access, you get the best price.
Yeah, and here's the part that I really need you to hear is everyone who orders during the pre-sale window gets that free Beauty Pro t-shirt we talked about. It's a real physical t-shirt. It's really cool. And I want to be very clear. This shirt is only available during the pre-sale. So when the book launches
Mhm.
publicly in May, the shirts are gone. So there's no way to get one after that window closes. So if you want the shirt, and trust me, once you hear what it stands for, you're going to want it. You have to order before we launch.
Yeah, because that shirt is a declaration. It's the Beauty Pro Manifesto made physical. It's you saying out loud, I know who I am, I know what I'm building, and I'm done shrinking. And someone is going to see you and ask about it, like we talked about, and you're going to get to tell them exactly who you are.
So you get the book shipping in May, you get the founding price, and you get the shirt that disappears the moment that we launch the book. The link is in the show notes. It's the first link that you will see. So go get it right now while the episode is still playing.
Yeah. And even if you are already inside salon business school, this book is for you, especially. Everything inside it amplifies everything you're already doing inside the work. That's same framework, same philosophy. Get the book, bring it into your work inside of the program, and let it deepen everything.
And if you're not in salon business school yet, uh, first, what are you waiting for? But seriously, you guys, like this book is the perfect introduction. If you read it and you think, I want to go deeper on this. That's exactly what the Salon Owner Code is for. And we'll tell you more about that on the other side of your order.
Yeah, and share this episode. I'm serious. If anything we said today landed with you, if you heard yourself in any of this, there's someone in your world who needs to hear it. A salon owner friend, someone you see inside of groups somewhere who is clearly carrying something heavy. Send them this episode, send them the link. It matters more than you know.
Yeah, our DMs are open, and we truly mean that. We are actually humans who actually talk to salon owners. And if this episode steered something up, reach out, ask your questions, start the conversation.
Yeah, because, that's what this is all about. Salon owners waking up to who they actually are and what they're actually capable of. And we don't take lightly that you show up here every week and let us be a part of that.
Yeah, I would say Lindsay, we're genuinely honored by it every single time.
Yeah. So, thank you for being here today. This episode was a big deal for us. This book is a big deal for us. Go get your copy. Pre-sale is open now. Shirt is included. Link is in the show notes. And then go be the salon owner that you already are. You just haven't let yourself see it yet.
All right, we'll see you next week.